Welcome to the Stumbling Spirit, Contemplations on the Path of Resilience. Whether you realize it or not, you are resilient. It's your birthright. As you take in your next breath, know this truth. It's not only about your capacity to overcome difficult situations, but it's about your courage to do the necessary work to heal, learn, grow, and move forward. What you gain is invaluable wisdom. And it's through these hard stumbles in life that we often discover a new purpose that aligns with our spirit. My name is Fabio da Silva Fernandez, Reiki Master, Mindfulness Coach, and Mystical Explorer. Join me as the Stumbling Spirit podcast highlights the lives of extraordinary people like you, sharing transformative stories and beneficial practices of resilience to guide you on your wellness journey. Based on the latest 2026 data, teachers around the world are struggling at their jobs. Some of the reasons include low salary, excessive workload, student needs, and burnout. In the United States alone, 44% of educators report feeling burnt out, with many leaving their long-held careers. Helping to support K-12 school professionals is Catalina Andrade, a doctor of education in organizational leadership, and a holistic practitioner with a specialization in mindfulness. Catalina is also the author of Break Free from the Cycle of Stress and Overwhelm with My Heart's Method. Here to talk about this timely subject is Dr. Catalina Andrade. Hello, Catalina.
Hello, Fabio. It's a pleasure being here with you.
It's a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you. So the stats are somewhat staggering. I got this information from the online source Flip Education, which compiled a whole bunch of data from various sources for 2026. I mentioned the US, but this is a worldwide phenomenon. In Australia, 84% of teachers report burnout symptoms, and 53% of Australian teachers plan to leave their profession in the next 5 years. So, from your vantage point, what is contributing to this global problem?
Well, the first thing that I see is that unfortunately, because of our systems that we have in education, we are forgetting to see that teacher, the school counselor, the principal, just as them within that role. We're forgetting the part that they're human beings. We're forgetting that outside that role, they also have other roles. They have the role of a wife, of a husband, of a sister, a brother, you name it, right? That's the missing link. That's what's really creating that big chaos. Because in education, like with any other systems, we're trying to keep it formatted, right? Within a box of like, this is education, these are the systems. Our major goal here, it's our students, the children. But going back, there's a big gap in there because yes, you might have programs supporting the student, but if you're lacking that support to the adult who's supporting that student, you're always going to end up with burnout. You're always going to burn out with overwhelm, exhaustion, frustration. I mean, it is not a surprise, right? Because again, we're forgetting that human part of that role. And that is the top major thing that I truly see. And it can go from the person who works at the cafeteria to the up leaders who are leading the systems that we already have. And if that doesn't change, of course, the burnout, the overwhelm, all of the different things that are happening and like all the statistics that you share, they will continue, even they will continue to grow. I'm not surprised to hear those numbers. When I was doing my research on school social workers, I got the same kind of numbers just here in California. And again, with the work that I do, it's just seeing that adult who they have such a big heart to help their student. So it's not because they don't want to be a good teacher. It's not because they don't know how to do their job. It's because they're lacking that support of they're going through life challenges of their own.
Part of the burnout, exhaustion, and overwhelm that you're referring to is workload. And what I found out is that 61% of teachers in the US report that excessive workload is a major reason why they are considering resigning. And to put this in context, US teachers work on average 53 hours per week. By comparison, in Finland, teachers work an average of 33 hours per week. And it's important to highlight that 88% of Finnish teachers report being satisfied with their jobs. And I should mention that Finland is consistently ranked as having one of the best educational systems in the world. So, given your experience, can you share your insights on the impact of workload on teachers?
As you were mentioning those numbers, it really reminded me going back into the same research that I did. And yes, workload, it was a big issue for school social workers. And it totally aligns with the experiences that I had or that I saw within my colleagues when I was working at school sites. So I'm really going to focus on working on school sites because, again, you're talking about teachers. I'm talking about any K to 12 school professional, right? And it's totally different working at a school site than just working at an office, per se, maybe at the county office of education. It's different because the workload it's totally different. I'm not going to exclude that which one is more stressful because I think that even though the environment is different, they both of them have their stress and overwhelm created by the overload of work. So it just reminded me of all the times that I heard many of my colleagues saying I had to take some of the work to my house. Even some of the interviews that I had with school social workers sharing with me, it was 9 p.m. and I was on a phone call with a student's parent. Those are the real things that are happening. That is the truth. And again, when we're thinking of this teacher, some people might be thinking, well, a teacher, it's just there within the hours that they're teaching their class and then they're done. No, like if you're a teacher, if you're a counselor, if you're anyone who works with students at a school site, you know there's so much more. And unfortunately, it's leading into that exhaustion because, again, we're not having those support programs for the adult, right? Like you mentioned before, you mentioned there's a lot of employees who are just trying to get out of that kind of employment because they're overwhelmed. Well, that causes that extra stress because now we have less people working at a school site. And what unfortunately happens? They get more of that work into the same staff. So it's creating that cycle of burnout that we already are at, and then making it much more bigger because we are losing our people. Because there's no support for them within the school, then they decide to leave.
I know that you work with a cross section of people in education, from teachers to social workers to administrators across the board. I am just highlighting the teacher stats because that was so readily available to me.
Mhm.
And often they are at the forefront of that relationship with students. So I want to circle back on another stat. And I'm mentioning this because I feel like it's important for listeners to really understand the gravity of the problem. I saw that 77% of teachers are reporting increased mental health needs among the student population post COVID. So, from your experience, what have you noticed on the mental health front since the pandemic?
See, it's funny. It's funny because of this. Again, I actually spoke about this on my dissertation, on my research. There was a question in regards to this of how school social workers notice any difference in regards to the support their students and families needed from them after COVID. And when it came with mental health, the surprise was that there were mental health issues even before COVID. COVID just came in and highlighted them.
Do you feel like COVID exacerbated the problem?
I think so. I see COVID as something that just came in, shook all of our systems that we had established, and it really made leaders and people just really take the time to notice what's working, what is not working anymore. That's how I feel about COVID, which within that chaos is that we were able to see things that we tried to hide before, that we kind of were aware of them. Like, okay, I know there's issues like mental health with the students, or yeah, there's some burnout with the teachers. Like after the first year that they become teachers, they start kind of like getting burnout and all the excitement that they had on their first year as a teacher, it's totally gone because now they're experiencing like, okay, the working with the student, working with the principal, working through all of these things, right? But I think that what COVID did was that highlighting everything and putting them in front of us. So even though COVID, it created this impact in regards that yes, it wasn't something good or not good. I don't want to use the word good or bad, but even though it was unpleasant, it was hard. But at the end, I think there was some light from it because again, it it shook us and it brought into the light of many issues that they were happening and that we didn't want to see.
I should mention to my listeners that because I'm based in Canada, it was difficult for me to find stats for Canada because education is handled on a provincial and territorial basis rather than at a federal level. So it was difficult for me to glean this information for Canada. I want to talk about your career a little bit more, but before I do so, I want to go back in time a little bit and discuss the beginning of your wellness journey. So, you and I were both at the Mindful World Summit, and you spoke at the summit. And one of the things I heard you say is that yoga was your introduction to holistic health. And one day you walked into a bookshop with your mom and you effectively told your mom, you said, I need that book. So, can you share that story with us?
Absolutely. Yeah, so just imagine a 10-year-old going into a bookstore, mom saying, okay, I have to go and do some shopping. And I was like, I'm in heaven. I always was really thrilled by books. I loved reading. I continue to love reading. And so I was happy. Like, it was like, okay, mom, like, yeah, just I can stay here and you can come whenever you want, right? What a surprise for my mom when she came back and I have this huge book with me. And I just run to her telling her, I need this book. I'm 10 years old. My mom looks at me. The book is in Spanish. I was in school as a bilingual. So, of course, my mom knew I didn't need a textbook or a book, right? So just imagine the face of my mom, like, what's going on? At the end, she bought it for me. Unfortunately, I don't even remember the name. I can close my eyes and totally see the cover of it, but unfortunately, I don't remember the name of it. But I remember my mom paying for the book, and I was like so happy to have it. The most interesting thing about this book was, yes, it spoke about yoga, but the part that I loved, even as a kid, was this philosophy of yoga. The philosophy that my inside world, it's connected also to the outside world, and my connection with myself, it's connected to you as well. That what I do eventually will have an effect on you. And that was the whole thing with that book. Even though my flexibility, it's not as good. It's even as a child. But that book for me, it was the start of that journey, I will say definitely, because it opened myself to being curious. Even being curious of then later I started reading books about culture. And that connected me like, oh, there's like other humans. It's not like only my family or the people that I know, like there's other people with different traditions. That's something that has played a big role. Even as I grew up, I will tell you that all of my friends have different cultures, different ethnicity. I just love learning from them, like their different language, their different food traditions. I am just in love with that. And I will say that it was just that book letting me know that whatever I did as a human being, it will eventually create an effect on somebody else, even if I had never met that person. And it just stick with me. So yes, that's the one of my favorite stories to share of how I started like with this holistic and wellness. Yoga, it's something that I continue to practice, but that it was the start of my journey, I will say.
As you say, it was the start of your journey of cultivating a relationship with yourself, understanding your inner world and its connection to the outer world. And I'm wondering, in continuing this discussion of your journey, what ultimately led you to become a holistic health practitioner?
Well, that's another funny story. I'm full of many funny stories. And I think it's just part of life. And if there's something that I have learned as a human being is that the more that you resist to life, you will feel more in trouble by life. So one of the things that I have noticed and I always share with people is I always follow my intuition. I am the person who I am. I have done what I have done because of that. Because even going back to that 10-year-old reaching for that book, because I'm really sure it wasn't like in the kids area. But just following my intuition is what has taken me into this journey and into the woman that I am. So, with that said, I will say that my journey as a holistic health practitioner started by an accident and maybe not an accident. So, I was actually in college. I was in the middle of to transferring to a four-year university. Yes, during my time, we had to fill everything on paper. So we had to mail things. We like there was a process, right? And even though I'm really good and really organized with dates and making sure I have everything, for some reason, the due date for that application, I honestly thought it was like the following week when it was literally like the following day. I had everything. So I call admissions. I'm not gonna say the University of or nothing, but I called them and I said, I have my application. I have my like everything, like all the documents that you're requesting, I have them here. Can I mail them to you like one day per? And they said, no, 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 they need to be stamped by, like they gave me a whole thing. I literally said, okay, I can go and just take them to your office. They said, no, they need to come by mail. So eventually something so simple, it became a big thing. And what really fired me was the person that I was speaking with. For some reason, he literally told me that I will have to sit down for one whole year before I could do the same process. So basically, he was telling me that I was going to do nothing for one whole year. And that really created this fire in me. I finished the conversation. I'm talking that literally I was 19 years old. Of course, I cried and I did like all this thing because I wanted to, like, I couldn't understand. And probably like after half an hour or I don't know how long it took, I went into the yellow pages. Yes, I'm that old. I went to the yellow pages and I started just looking for different colleges, programs, and there it was, how to become a holistic health practitioner. I looked at it and I said, this is what I want to do. And that started my journey as a holistic health practitioner. I within that week, I literally called them. I went into like the interview. I checked the different schools that I was able to complete that. And I will say by within 3 weeks. And when I finished my classes at the college, now I was ready and I was enrolled as a holistic health practitioner.
Wow. What is a holistic health practitioner?
That's a really great question. The way that I see it and the way that I learned it and saw everything was as a holistic health practitioner. First of all, there's a big part of practice in it, right? That's why you're a practitioner. The beauty of being a holistic health practitioner is that you're really seeing, and now I'm talking as the consultant, the practitioner to someone else, is that when somebody comes to me and just tells me, I suffer from migraines, yes, I look that part, but as a holistic health practitioner, you need to see that person as a whole, what is going in their life, what is going with their diet, what is going with their exercise, what is going with their mental health. So it's a big difference as opposed to just treating the migraines, right? So whenever I started as a holistic health practitioner, when I started really taking clients in, that was my approach. It's you're coming with me, yes, maybe with issues that you already know because you're going to the medical doctor. Always continue with that. It's not my part to take that job. But with me, it's we're gonna see the whole picture of you. Because I think that unfortunately in society, they take us apart, even when we go to the doctor. And again, it's nothing against that. I think it's beautiful that we have that medical support, definitely. But again, the missing part is that it's like they're cutting all these different parts of us. And as a holistic health practitioner, our job is to bring all of those parts coming back together and truly really find out with that patient, with that client, to see what is going on deep within themselves that it's creating the symptom that they're having. That's how I see it as a holistic health practitioner. So, as a holistic health practitioner, I feel we're their guides, we're their mentors, we're the guides who help them really start focusing from the outside into coming into the inside.
Just for some clarity, can you describe the different areas that are included as a holistic health practitioner? What did you actually learn when you were trained in that field?
I actually trained, there's many things, and the program that I did, it was a beautiful program because again, it helped me reconnect to all these different parts as a human being. It taught you from the physical in regards to kinesiology, body work, muscle testing. So it really created that connecting with your physical, your vessel, right? And nutrition. That was also a big part of the program that I did. And then I will say that we worked a lot also in the things that we are not able to see, but we know that they're there. So we work a lot in the emotional part of the energetic things as well. We did a lot of the mental support as well with relaxation, breathing, breath work. So there, as you can see, there's many things going on, many practices, right? But each one, it's a focus in these practices can support your body. This one support your energy, your emotions, and this one supports your mental health. And at the end, you're bringing all of it to this whole person and bringing them back into feeling whole again.
One of the things you mentioned just now is breath work, which is a dimension of mindfulness. One of the things I ask all practitioners of mindfulness that come on my podcast is to share what their definition of mindfulness is. So I'm wondering if you can do that right now.
Absolutely. For me, mindfulness, yes, it's being aware of my present, being aware of my body, being aware of my thoughts, but also seeing that awareness without judgment, just seeing them as they are. And within that awareness and calmness, if I need to take an action, I take action from that space, from that awareness, and from that calmness. That's my definition for mindfulness.
Let's shift gears and talk about your career in education. Can you tell us a little bit of your story and explain how you got from holistic health practitioner to becoming a doctor in education and organizational leadership?
Absolutely. But first of all, I'm going to go a little bit back. And I know you asked me before, like, how did your holistic health practitioner started? And I gave you of actually what happened, of that story of what happened, how I became enrolled in a holistic health program. What I want to share with you, and I think it's also important. There was a shift in me of just enrolling and learning as a holistic health practitioner, a shift into I am serious about this. I am using everything I'm learning for myself and from everybody else who wants to learn from me. And it actually came when I was 21 years old. I was almost completing the program as a holistic health practitioner, but I was also the caregiver of my mom, who she had a couple of strokes and she was diabetic. It was actually by her bed when I suddenly saw her, I saw myself, and I said, I never want to go through all the things that she has gone through. What can I do? And I literally did the math. Unfortunately, my mom passed when she was 60 years old. And I did the math and literally said to myself, if I have 40 something years, how do I want to spend those 40 something years? And that was the shift that had to happen for me to really say, this is it. I want to do this for me and for other people. Now, through all of my career, that has been one of the big things. I always wanted to help people. into not only understanding, not only supporting themselves with what was going on outside of them, but my whole idea was if you want to fix the things that are going outside, you need to look inward. And that came as the holistic health practitioner. That came as the child who started learning about yoga and its philosophy. So, whatever kind of job I had, I always brought that within, always. So, in education, like I mentioned, yes, I was a holistic health practitioner. But if you remember, I became a holistic health practitioner because I couldn't transfer for that year. So even though I had my practice as a holistic health practitioner, I was doing well, I had my clients, something in me just wanted to go back to college and finish my bachelor's degree. Again, there was this fire saying, okay, it's time to move on. So I did, right? Because I always follow my intuition. So I went into the university to complete my bachelor degree in English, actually. And because of that, I said, you know what? I do have my clients because people continue to come for my services. But then I had the opportunity to become a tutor at different school sites as a university student. And I did that and I fell in love with it. Of course, I was the tutor who was different because I was taking the students outside, like to the outside area, the grassy area, and the kids loved it. When I saw them like struggling with something, I will tell them, "Hey, stop. Just stop. Just breathe. Do you want to go for a little walk? I can see you and then you can come back." So as you can see, even though I was a tutor, I was implementing all of these little techniques that I knew will help them because of all of my wellness and holistic practices. I knew they were going to support them. So I started using them. Then, of course, I became working at school offices. I became an after school program coordinator, which it has been one of my favorite job positions at a school site. People who work at a school site, they can definitely tell you of how different every single day is. But again, it's the beauty of it. I mean, I had the pleasure of working as an after school program, and I love that part. I got to use different skills to really support the whole program, support the parents, support the student, and even my other colleagues. And again, it became not unusual. Then while I was maybe working on a report, I was doing my job at the office. Secretaries, teachers, counselors, they will come and they will say, "Hey, Catalina, I'm kind of having a headache. Like, do you know like something I can do, like a breathing or something?" And I will tell them, "Oh, you can do this. You can do a pressure point. You can do this breathing. Let's see and find out if that works for you." So again, even though I was at a school site with a totally different role than a holistic health practitioner, it was just part of me. It was just part of my life that I was bringing all of that knowledge back into whatever job I was doing. Moving forward, I did my master's and I continue when I was doing my master's again, I continued to work in education. So in education, I have around 16, 17 years of experience working in K to 12. Most of that experience has been in after school programs or as a liaison for parents and school staff. So I have been like always in the middle and it's one of the things that I loved because I always felt that I was helping bring together these two parts that sometimes they were not in alignment, but I was there in the middle to support them and really work together. And with that, a lot of the things that I just started seeing in students, parents, my colleagues, as I mentioned before, I started noticing of the stories my colleagues will tell me, like, oh, I'm having like this health issues. I never had that problem before, but now like 2 years later, I'm having these health issues. Or like it's the weekend and yeah, I still have work to do. And I'm coming back on Monday to continue with the work. Like things like that. On the other side, I will see our students also dealing and having their own life challenges, right? Students, because I did a lot of after school programs, the students that they brought into this program, they always were placed as the bad kids. Oh, they're not doing their homework. Oh, they have to stay in detention. They're fighting. They're doing this. And again, as a holistic health practitioner, I was, okay, let's see what's really happening with the students. Yes, what we're seeing is the outside of what's going on. They're not bringing their homework. They're having all of this emotional breakdowns, like, but there's something going on. And because I was the coordinator after school, I had the time to talk to them. And that's what I did. I just asked questions. I will just listen, which I think that sometimes we forget to just simply be there and listen. And as I listen, I started noticing, hey, these are really smart kids. Oh, but they're not bringing their homework because they really don't have internet connection. Oh, wait a minute. This kid, he's really smart, but he's homeless. Oh, this kid, their parents are divorcing. So it was, for me, it was opening myself to really notice those kids and what they were struggling with. So even when I spoke with their parents, I had this background information, if you want to call it, that really helped me tune in to the parent, to the student, and really offered them the resources that we had at our school site that could really benefit them. My job was something's going on beyond not doing the homework. Let me see what's going on. Let me see what resources we have available so I can really help you. And again, I think that's why I really became really passionate about mindfulness, of being mindful of what I was bringing to the table, of really taking the time to listen to the student, to the parent, because I noticed how that started really creating a difference as opposed to just treating the student as they're not doing good and we just will keep them in this program. And again, when I was doing my master's, it really came up to me like, what do I do now? Like, yes, I'm at a school site right now. I still have clients throughout all of this, like 20 years now, that they continue to follow. They continue for me to mentor them and to give them like all this holistic support. Where do I really belong? Where do I feel I want to be with all this knowledge? Within that time, I I just got the idea I want to support moms. If I focus within the moms, because I already have a lot of clients who are moms, maybe I'll do something there. It will create this ripple effect, right? So I will say that I work specifically with moms for around 5 years, 6 years. And I was still doing partially some work at school sites. This was actually around COVID time as well. And I continued to do that. And of course, that little fire started coming back again and said, what if I do my doctorate? So again, I started exploring, looking at different programs. Again, it was the shift in me, and everything just started aligning for me to be part of that doctorate program. Even the job that I had started at that school site. Because of that, I did started doing less clients. with the work that I was doing with moms. Eventually, like I mentioned, after 5, 6 years, I was really focusing on my doctorate degree that I said, I am sorry, like I will always be here for you, but I think it's time for me, for my journey to take into this other part. But I think it was really helpful in a way that it started aligning everything else that I wanted to do. So when I say that everything started aligning was that the doctorate program that I completed, they not only requested for me to do research or a dissertation, but they also wanted for me to complete a portfolio of different work within the organization that I was working within their program. But then also, they wanted me to have a project, a transformational project that lasted 1 year to 1 year and a half. At the school site where I was working, I had the opportunity to meet a professor from one of the local universities here in California. And when we first met, she was really impressed of all the background I had as a holistic health practitioner. And she said, how come you now work in education? And I said, oh, I work in education, but trust me, I bring all of that holistic knowledge into the work that I do at schools. And she said, okay, I need to show you something. She literally pulled out on her screen this big plan. And it had to do with school social workers, with school sites, parents' academies, even the university department for social work. And she said, what do you see in the middle? And big in the middle, it had trauma informed, it had like different other programs, but right in the middle, it had mindfulness. And she said, I have this big project. And as you can see, there's mindfulness, but I don't know how to integrate it. Do you have any ideas? I said, give me some time because I mean, it is a huge project. Like you're not only supporting the school social workers, it's a whole ecosystem here that you're trying to create. I said, but that's good. Just send me a copy of it and if anything comes to me, I'll definitely let you know. So when I got my letter of my doctorate program that I had been accepted and I was going to have like one more interview in regards to the program, they said, if you already have an idea of your project, we will ask questions about that. And I said, I have it. I know what it is. I went back to her and I said, I'm starting my doctorate program and I need a project for 1 year, 1 year and a half, maybe. What if I teach mindfulness to your school social workers? And she said, go for it. And that totally, it created this shift of everything it's aligning. There's a purpose for me to be here, blending my holistic wisdom, my practices, my teachings into a much higher level.
So I need to ask you, why did you choose ultimately to work with social workers, teachers, administration, like at that level, rather than with students?
You know, it's exactly the same question one of my colleagues asked me. Within my doctorate program, we were a cohort, and one of them, he asked me that. And I said, look, yes, I can go into a school site and say, hey, will you allow me to teach this mindfulness practices to your students? And probably they will say yes. But what kind of effect will that have? As opposed to if I now work and train the social workers who get to teach mindfulness to the student. And I said, I will have a much bigger impact and a higher effect by teaching that will continue to teach all of her students that are coming grade after grade. I said, it's not because it's not going to help the student if I just teach the student. I did that before, right? When I was a tutor, when I was a coordinator, I did a lot of those little things one by one. But I want to create a bigger effect when it comes to mindfulness. So, to answer your question, that was the reasoning. I wanted to give the training to that person who could use it for her, which that was one of my main objectives. And when I spoke with this person who allowed me to actually do the mindfulness training, I said, look, there's a big difference of how I'm going to teach them mindfulness. And she said, what is that? I said, all of the courses out there, when it comes to mindfulness in education, it's to train the teacher, the social worker, the counselor to teach mindfulness to the student. And I said, I want them to learn mindfulness for them to use it for themselves. And yes, from there, they will share what they have learned. So, of course, this person who agreed to support me with that, she said, you do how you want to do it, how you best think it will support my school social workers, you go for it. And that's what I did. And that's the way that I teach mindfulness. And that is why I really focus on everyone who works, all the adults who work K to 12. And of course, starting from teachers, social workers, principals, but I'm not stopping there. I really also want to support those higher leaders because if we don't have that support of that higher leader, then unfortunately, we are not able to really bring mindfulness in education.
It's so important to take the integrated approach. To my listeners, what do you think of my conversation with Dr. Catalina Andrade? Have you used mindfulness practices as an educator? I'd love to hear from you. Send me your thoughts on Blue Sky at thestumblingspirit.bsky.social. I mentioned earlier that you're the author of Break Free from the Cycle of Stress and Overwhelm with My Heart's Method, a 6-phase journey to mindfulness for K to 12 professionals. So let's go through each of the phases. So number 1 is honor your well-being. So can you tell us about this?
Yes, absolutely. So again, my heart's method, it supports that human being part of that person who is working at a school site. Like you mentioned, it is 6 phases, and from hearts, it's an acronym, and each letter has its own specific phase. The first one, like you mentioned, it's honoring. And for me, it's really important because, like I mentioned before, I will say that most people who work in education, it's because they have a big heart. They really want to help and support their students, their families. And for me, it's really important, this honoring part, because now it allows that same person to honor themselves the same way that they want to honor their student, the parents, and so on. It can sound really simple, but it can become really hard, especially from coming from a personal experience of a caregiver, someone who always wanted to help. It was really hard for me to receive that honoring. I mean, I had to take a journey. My whole life has been a journey to really honor myself. So this first phase for me, it's really important. Why? Because by honoring themselves, they will start becoming aware. Honoring, it's all about becoming aware of what's going on internally and outside of them. How are those things aligned or misaligned? Within my book, I have a really simple exercise in which all they have to do is look at their agenda and start noticing. all the activities that I do in my day, what are the ones that are coming from the outside? What are the ones that are coming from my role that I have to do? And which one of those activities are really nourishing me? Because again, we live in a society who's always pushing us to do, to be in the doing. And we forget to just be present and be in the now and really taking the time to just being. And I think it's because people tend to lose themselves in all the things that they're responsible to do. So honoring is about that. It's honoring themselves by just starting to notice, just becoming aware, not trying to fix anything. Because again, as human beings and as really good people who want to support others, who are doers, we always want to do things. We want to fix, we see a problem, and the first reaction is, how do I fix this? Honoring takes us all the way back in saying, no, you're just going to observe. That's it. There's no fixing, no nothing, but you're just going to become aware. So then from that awareness, you can start moving.
Okay, so number two is evaluate the roots of stress. So why is evaluating the roots of stress important?
It is so important because if you're not really looking from where that stress is coming from, how can you really take an action that will really benefit you? And again, I give a couple of examples in my book about this. But evaluating, it's bringing that awareness into the areas, even just your body, just really becoming aware of your thoughts. What's going on with your thoughts? What's going on with your physical body? Is it in pain? Is it stress? Is it tense? And then, of course, your emotions. But imagine that maybe one day you're feeling just a headache. How do you actually know what it's going to support you with that headache? Because that headache can actually just literally physical. It can just be you need to drink more water. Or it can really be like there's so much tension within your physical body that it's really creating that lower oxygen in your brain, that it's really creating that headache. So as you can see, there's not only one solution for that headache. It all depends on the person. It all depends on what's going on with them. Is that headache a reflection of something that is going on inside? Is it just a reflection of what's going on outside of them? So for me, evaluating it's really important before you take action. So you know what is the best thing for you to take, right? It's kind of going back into that example that I gave before of when I was an after school program coordinator. Yes, we had the issues of students not completing their assignment, but because my awareness became, wait a minute, they're struggling because of this, that was my evaluation. There's more going on than just not completing the homework assignment. By building that awareness and evaluating the situation with that extra information, now I can apply the right resource or the right practice. So that's why evaluating it's really important because it will really help you to find out what is it that you need right now. It's again, just to give you another example, people are feeling really tired, but then from where are you feeling tired? Is it actually physical or is it mental or is it even emotional? Because if it's physical and you do something to support your mental fatigue, it's not really going to help you. So again, that is why evaluating it's there because I think it's really, really important to come from that awareness and really now taking the time to notice the patterns, notice everything, the outside and the inside, for me to take the right action.
Well, taking the right action is related to the next step, number three, which is applying simple mindfulness practices. So, what do you mean by simple mindfulness practices?
What I mean by simple practices are mindfulness practices, or I will say integrating mindfulness techniques into your day instead of trying to do 30 minutes of yoga in the morning or trying to meditate for 1 hour every day. Unfortunately, I'm not saying that it's great. If you have the time and you have that discipline, go for it. Do it if it works for you. But from what I have seen with the people, especially who work in education, it's they don't have the time and they haven't got into that discipline. And because their day, it's so changing. It changes like no day at a school site, it's the same. So for me, in the next phase, which is the applying phase, for me, it was really important to bring those mindfulness techniques that they can do before a class, after a class, before making a phone call. All of those little things that they can do within 1 minute, 2 minutes. Like most of the exercise that I give, you can do like in seconds or less than 3 minutes. I don't even, it's really rare that I will give you something even for 5 minutes. Because for me, it's more important, and I have noticed a bigger shift when people, especially if they're new, to start integrating mindfulness little by little throughout the day. That instead of saying, okay, now every morning I'm going to meditate for 30 minutes. Because what happens? If they don't do it, now they're suffering from not doing it because now they're saying to themselves, darn it, I said to myself I was going to do this and now I didn't do it. So for me, I have learned that it is much easier for people to do 1 minute here, 1 minute there. Through my research and my interviews, it was really nice to hear the different ways school social workers practice their mindfulness. And I wasn't surprised to hear, oh, because I drive from one school site to another, whenever I just park my car, I just take 3 deep breaths. And that helps me, that aligns me. And then I get to go into the school site. I got a lot of those same practices that I share from people that they're actually doing them and they notice the big difference of using them and not using them, specifically when they're working with students and parents.
And using them relates to number four, which is receive the healing and renewal as a result of those practices. So, can you elaborate on this point?
Absolutely. Yes. So it takes to that of because I have created this space, this mindful space for me before I work with a student, before I work with a parent, or even with another colleague. I open this space to receive in many forms that, again, as people who are always trying to help other people, they tend to put on the back. And I'm even talking about even receiving compliments, about even receiving thank you. So it's opening yourself to that of I am supporting myself, I am supporting my student, and I am also open to receive that goodness that can come from that, from the job, from the parent, from the colleague, from life within itself. And it can create a different shift of how we present ourselves every single day in a role, right? So that's actually receiving, just being open to that, creating that shift of I am helping or I'm the caregiver, I'm the supporter, but now I get to receive. And it's okay for me to receive as well.
Part of creating that shift is transforming heavy emotions, which is number five. So, why is this piece essential?
You know what? For me, when I think of transformation, yes, I think of change. But what I noticed that when people think of transformation and change, they think of, I'm going to become someone else. I'm going to become something else that they're not able to relate to. The way that I see it and that I bring into the transformation phase is you're not going to change into something you don't know. What if we change that into you're just going to change in a way that you're actually coming to yourself? You're becoming that original self, the one that is calm, the one that is relaxed, the one that is mindful, the one that feels the pleasure of life. So for me, that's a big shift, a big transformation. The transforming phase, I really linked into the emotions because as a holistic health practitioner, if there's something that I learned was your emotions will always tell you the root of whatever it's going on within your life. If it's mental, if it's physical, always, if you want to go into the root of all of that, always go into your emotions. And unfortunately, what I notice with the people that I work, it's there's a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. There's a lot of all this lower emotions that, again, I don't want to say bad or good, but we shouldn't be stuck within one emotion and let that emotion run our whole life, right? So for me, this phase, the way that I bring it is really transforming, understanding your emotions, where they're coming from, and giving you the opportunity to learn from that emotion to be able to release it and work with it. And really learn from it because it's not that if you want to release that shame, it doesn't mean that you are never going to feel shame. But now you know how to work with shame, or at least you are aware of if emotionally you're feeling shame or guilt, you will know its pattern. You will know its pattern of what it happens in your mind and what happens in your physical body. So again, it's a journey that comes really from that awareness and taking little steps into creating that version of you that it's whole, that it's you as a human being.
The final phase of your heart's journey is number 6, which is settle into a natural rhythm of mindfulness and alignment. So explain that for us.
Absolutely. So I think that after transformation, you will notice a new way of living that you need to sustain. Like I know that something it's going to transform within yourself that you want to keep that. So settling it's that invitation that for you to continue to feel whole and complete, how do you continue to integrate those mindfulness techniques? Maybe it is every minute, so here and there. Maybe it is, you know what? Now I feel I do want to do 20 minutes of meditation. I do feel that I want to do a 15-minute walk. Just no music, no cell phone, no nothing. I just want to go and do that. Settling is about that. It's really finding your whole self, your mindful lifestyle that works for you. Because my mindful lifestyle might not be the same as you, Fabio. And it's not going to be the same for somebody else. So my heart's method, it's that. It's really creating something that it's going to support you at a personal level. It's not a cookie cutter that this phase has to be like this and that. No, each phase has different exercises that it's going to support people the same way, but each one of them are going to find something totally different. It's like when I do group meditations. I might do exactly the same meditation because I'm guiding it, but it doesn't mean that all of the participants are going to have the exact same experience. So settling, it's really finding, tuning into that mindfulness lifestyle that works for them. Because again, the truth is we work in a busy environment. School sites are busy environments. They're changing environments. So how do I bring that mindfulness practice into my busy schedule or my time with my family? So it's combining and integrating everything that you are as a human being.
Reflecting on the work that you do, what do you see as the vision? What is your vision of the future of education and leveraging mindfulness within that system?
Mindfulness in education, like I said, it has been focused a lot in bringing mindfulness practices to students. My vision, my goal is let's bring it to those who are supporting those students. Let's bring more human kindness by supporting all the adults who are supporting those students, those families, those communities. A school site, it's an ecosystem, and it's not only the student. We have teachers, we have social workers, we have leaders as well, we have community leaders, we have parents. So within my book, I talk a bit about this, and that's why I propose creating a Hearts Method Wellness Committee. My vision is for school sites to create a wellness committee where everyone is invited, from parents to teachers, anyone who works at the school site, leaders, even students, so they can really understand what kind of wellness they need and what is even the definition of wellness within that school site. Because I think that there might be a good intention of having programs to support employees with wellness. But unfortunately, one of the things that I notice is they don't participate. So it's really taking the time to even find out, okay, we have these resources. How can we really bring our employees to take advantage of these resources? And if they're not coming, why are not they're coming? If they're telling us that they need more support in mental health, and yeah, maybe we have this talk about mental health, but they're not coming, then there's a big gap there. And we need to find out, as leaders in education, we need to find out what is going on deeper to really create and use the resources that they already have to really support those employees. So that is my big vision. My big vision is don't only support the student. It's great, but you also have to support that adult who, at the end, I mean, even in leadership 101, they tell you what is an organization, which in this case, what is a school site? It's the people who make it. It's the people who work there. So if we're not bringing wellness into those people, then we're not bringing wellness into our school sites. We're not bringing wellness into our districts. And it will continue to affect in a negative way the way that ecosystem of schools. You will continue to see burnout. You will continue to see employees leaving. And who it's going, unfortunately, who is going to suffer more? The student, the communities in that school.
What does resilience mean to you?
I think that resilience, when I think of it as a holistic and as a leader, as someone who has worked in education, I might see it differently than what other people might see it. I see it in a way that it is of myself, of who I am as a person, that I bring into the environment where I work or where I live. So that resilience, if I am resilient, that's what I'm going to bring into that same community or location, as opposed to making it just as an individual thing. In education, you always hear it, oh, well, you can use mindfulness. It helps you to be more resilient. But they're always talking as the individual. What my proposal is, what if we really want to create that community of resilient people, of resilient employees, of resilient people who work together and support each other? Yes, it comes from me, but then within a system, how can we support from each other so then I can be resilient and we can be resilient? In schools, because we have different departments, different people supporting a student, we tend to have this gap of not coming together. So just to give you an example, maybe we have a student who's failing classes. So we have this issue, and we have maybe the teacher will start working with the student to bring up their grades. Then we have the social worker to kind of support of what is going on, if they have any mental health issues, what other things do they need as a student. Maybe we have the psychologist too. We have the counselor as well. For me, it's if you are resilient within yourself, it is also important to have it as an individual, but to bring it as a whole in the work that you do. And I think it relates to something, again, that I noticed of that disconnection within different departments in our school sites. I'm seeing it more as an effect of being resilient within myself. How is that going to support not only me as a whole being, but also within the work that I do?
A holistic approach.
Yes, correct. A holistic approach.
This season, I'm exploring the connection between compassion and resilience. And I'm wondering whether you have any thoughts on that.
I think it goes back into what I was talking about receiving. It comes to mind all the different stories that I heard from school social workers telling me of when I practice mindfulness, I feel more compassion for the person who's in front of me. I feel more compassion and I became less biased to the challenges that I see in her from parents or students. And at the same time, opening themselves and creating that compassion for the other person, you're also allowing yourself to receive that compassion. Because I had another social worker telling me, I noticed when it was just too much for me. And I had to step back and I had to say, I need to take a leave of 1 month. For me, that is resilience. That is understanding yourself, being mindful of others, but also mindful of yourself and what your needs are. And from that, you create resilience. You create that strength, that mental strength, that emotional strength. But if we don't bring compassion, we disconnect from that human part of just seeing you as a human person, which again, it takes us to when we think of the teacher, the counselor, even the school principal, even our educational leaders. We see them just as that role. But we have to remind ourselves at the end of everything, they're human beings. And that is why for me, compassion, it's so important. Compassion for me, it's telling that other person, I see you, I hear you, you're a human being. And again, for me, that is resilience. It's creating that strength, not only within myself, but with other people, creating that connection, which I think that as human beings, we tend to forget. And sometimes it comes from society because society tries to put us in different groups, maybe by color, maybe by income. Like there's many ways that society tries to pull us apart. So I think it's time for human beings to see each other as human beings so we can start coming back together. And as we start coming back together within a group, within a community, as a society, we start coming back to ourselves.
That's a beautiful message. How can people reach you if they want to contact you, and how can they purchase your book?
They can actually reach me at my website. It's drcatalina.com. They can find everything that I do there. I do workshops, I do talks, I do different presentations. My books, I actually have two books, and you can both find them at Amazon. If you visit my website, you will also find them there, and you will find the link where to purchase them and everything.
Catalina Andrade is a holistic practitioner and doctor of education and organizational leadership. She is also the author of Break Free from the Cycle of Stress and Overwhelm with My Heart's Method, a 6-phase journey to mindfulness for K to 12 professionals. Thank you so much for coming on my show. I really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your expertise and your insights. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It has been such a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to The Stumbling Spirit, Contemplations on the Path of Resilience. This is Fabio da Silva Fernandez. Join me again for another episode of transformative stories and beneficial practices to guide you on your wellness journey. If you wish, you can follow and DM me on Blue Sky at thestumblingspirit.bsky.social. Until next time, take a deep breath and another step forward on your path of resilience.